Representative Darrell Issa joins us now. Sir, welcome. It's good to talk to you on the closing bell.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Aren't you at all worried about the optics of holding a hearing today when the rest of the government is shut down? Some 800,000 federal employees furloughed, not getting paid?
Well, I think the most important thing that our committee does is root out waste, fraud, and abuse in government. Today's hearing was on a complete breakdown in the control systems that failed to keep somebody from impersonating a CIA person, retiring but still getting paid more than the amount allowed statutorily by law, and getting paid for trips to go see his mom in California while he said he was going to Boston. So on a bipartisan basis, with the full support of my ranking member, we're continuing to look for the failures of internal controls and try to make sure the administration uses your money more wisely. That's certainly an essential part of what Congress does.
So clearly you're not worried about the optics of that. What about the fact that you and your colleagues, even the president for that matter, are all getting paid when so many federal workers are not, as a result of the fact that you guys cannot come to an agreement?
Well, first of all, I think we should look at history. No federal worker ever lost a day's pay. The fact is that if history predicts what's going to happen, they'll be retroactively paid for the time they're on furlough. But notwithstanding that, we offered several times in the last couple of days ways out of it with full funding, including an offer to go to conference. Our side of the aisle in the House has been saying, let's talk, let's negotiate, let's come to a compromise to both fund the government and protect the American people from a system that has some not ready yet portions. And we're getting stonewalling from the Senate and an outright refusal to even consider any kind of compromise by the administration, even though they themselves have repeatedly delayed parts of Obamacare. They're not willing to talk to us.
Where does this go? What's the end game here, finally?
Well, certainly Speaker Boehner, Leader Cantor, and the entire team are asking for an opportunity to reach a compromise. They've extended repeatedly the offer of short-term CRs to give us more time to negotiate. But right now we're getting we won't negotiate and everything's being tabled. And that's simply not the way business has been done in Washington in the past. In the past, even during the Clinton administration with Newt Gingrich, these very tough situations, at least they kept talking and negotiating. And quite frankly, the request that the House is asking for is small, but it's pretty essential if we're going to have people not have to get into a system that isn't ready.
That may all be true, but the polls right now suggest that the Republicans are going to get blamed. Will the Republicans pay for this at the next election?
Michelle, there's been plenty of times in history in which people get the blame for telling the truth, for doing the right thing. And I certainly think we've made the case that we're trying to do the right thing for the American people. We're certainly willing to compromise with the president and the Senate. But there are some areas in which, if they were really in charge and caring about the American worker, they'd be making these compromises. That's what we'd like to do. Remember, Churchill said, after World War I, leading up to World War II, that you got to watch out for the Nazis. Churchill even said you got to watch out for the communist growth after World War II. And he got voted out of office for it. Although I wouldn't like to get voted out of office, my obligation is to do the right thing. To start off with a premise that we do the right thing and try to reach a consensus between the bodies. That's what Washington's supposed to be about. It's what Leader Cantor and Speaker Boehner are trying to do.
You keep using the word compromise, sir. It seems like a compromise is most needed not between you and the president or your party and the president, but members of your own party and the leader of your party, Speaker Boehner, who says that the strategy being employed right now essentially is a losing strategy.
Well, I don't know what quote you're getting from. The fact is, we have been...
It's not a quote, but I think he's made it clear that he disagrees with shutting down the government and defunding the Affordable Care Act as a means to do it.
The Speaker's been very clear that we do not want to shut down the government. We didn't want this to happen. We voted repeatedly to try to prevent it, and we'll continue to do so. What I've done in supporting my leadership and Speaker Boehner is not necessarily exactly what any one of us would want, but we're trying to make the point that if the president, even without authority, can repeatedly delay or provide waivers to people to get them out of it, including the unions, including businesses, that he should really look at people like the people of Maryland, who right now won't have an exchange to go into, even though they're mandated to go into the exchange. You can't have it both ways. Yes.
the debt ceiling is the next situation, so to speak. This whole issue of trying to delay, defund Obamacare. Once you get past this with the government shutdown, are you done, or is this now become part of the debt ceiling debate as well?
As you know, I work on waste, fraud, and abuse in government. I've always said that we will raise the debt ceiling to at least equal our level of spending. If we pass the CR, we certainly should increase the debt ceiling to the amount equal to what we vote in the CR. So I think. Are
you willing to use health care reform again when it for leverage when it comes to the debt ceiling debate?
Well, I don't think anyone's using health care reform. We're using some portions of the Affordable Care Act that aren't ready right now to go live, and we're trying to convince people. We also tried to make the point.
So would you use those again during the debt ceiling?
Again, we have not. We have tried to get these reforms. We've tried to ask the president to do for the individual American citizen what he's done for unions and big corporations, and so far he's been unwilling to even come to the table and talk. We're trying to get him to the table to talk. Again, I have always said that we should fund to the level of appropriations we should fund the debt ceiling.
And does that mean you're not going to involve it with the debt ceiling?
Again, our leadership makes the decision on the exact nature of some of these. I've offered alternatives to Obamacare, including I'd like to see every American have access to FEHBP, the same health care system the president, the vice president, and every member of cabinet are currently in. I'd like to see that opened up to every American. I think that'd be the kind of exchange that could be up and running in a matter of weeks, because it already serves over 8 million Americans. It already has over 300 different choices. So there are alternatives that we could get the Affordable Care Act enacted sooner, give people an opportunity to sign up for a known entity.
You're not managing to get them on the table at this point. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, Congressman, let me just ask you
look,
one.
As long as the president says he won't do anything except what he wants to do, he won't recognize that he was elected, but so were a majority in the House, and we've got ideas and we've got opportunities, we hope, to be heard for what the American people would like to have and get a better solution. I came to Congress wanting to make health care more affordable, wanting to do patent reform, wanting to do immigration reform. These are all areas that, quite frankly, the president says he wants to be involved in. I'd like him to engage.
I think the American people at this point have heard both sides of the argument, and they're frankly so tired of the fact that you guys just can't come together and work together. I just want to ask you one final question, and that is, I read a comment you made to a journalist earlier today where you said that Congress has the right not to fund the government. Do you regret making that statement?
We have the right to fund or not fund anything in the government. Since George Washington, presidents have come and said what they want. Now, under Tip O'Neill, he shut down the government because he couldn't spend enough under Ronald Reagan. The idea that we would decide to fund something at a lower level is absolutely in the Constitution, Article 1. It's not a debatable point. So, yes, we have the right to choose not to fund something. And if no funds can be used to do something wrong, that's the case.
Right, but the point being, sir, that I think the American people would clearly argue that they have more of a right to have their government open than you do the right to shut it down.
Well, that's your opinion, and it's a pretty partisan opinion. The fact is, we have offered to fully fund the government. We've asked for compromise on the date of implementation of the individual mandate, and we've been told no compromise. And we continue to try to believe that the American people want compromise. They want a reasoned debate here in Washington. And whether it's about a dollar level on one thing or a mandate on the other, we're trying to do the American people's work and do it in a way that would work together. This problem, this 3-year problem since House Republicans came into taking the speakership, is a problem of the president's lack of willingness to compromise, not Speaker Boehner's lack of willingness to engage.
Representative Issa, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.